Alright, I'm gonna say something that's going to piss off a lot of people out there. And I don't care because I think there's some really toxic advice floating around about relationships that's actually destroying men's chances of getting genuine respect and connection from women. Here's what happened to me. I'm 40 years old, and I think I can count on one hand the number of real apologies I've received from women in my life. And that doesn't mean I've only dated saints. It means women seem to find it incredibly hard to apologize for bad behavior, even when they're clearly in the wrong. Now, most relationship coaches will tell you, this is just how women are, or they'll give you some nonsense about love languages and how women show sorry differently. But I've discovered something that completely flips this conventional wisdom on its head, and it's based on actual psychology, not feel-good relationship advice. You probably want to know what that is? Well, I've got 3 major misconceptions that men have about why women don't apologize. And I'm not just going to leave you hanging there. I'm going to show you exactly what's really happening in the female mind during conflicts, why their strategies actually make perfect evolutionary sense, and most importantly, how understanding this can completely transform your relationships. Because here's the thing, when you understand why women avoid apologies, you'll realize they're not being stubborn or manipulative. They're actually trying to solve what they see as the real problem. And once you get this, everything changes. So, let's start with the first misconception, and this one's going to surprise you. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most frustrating dynamics in male-female relationships. Why women seem allergic to giving genuine apologies, why their alternative strategies feel so unsatisfying to men, and what this reveals about fundamental differences in how the sexes approach conflict, responsibility, and emotional repair. By the end of this exploration, you'll understand why women use sex, food, distraction, and time as apology substitutes, why these strategies actually make psychological sense from an evolutionary perspective, and most importantly, how understanding these differences can transform your relationships and your expectations. I've spent years studying gender psychology, attachment theory, and conflict resolution patterns, and what I'm about to reveal goes far deeper than simple communication differences. But first, let me share a statistic that might shock you. Research shows that women apologize significantly more often than men in daily interactions, for bumping into people, for speaking up in meetings, for taking up space. Yet, when it comes to genuine wrongdoing in intimate relationships, the pattern completely reverses. This isn't just about hurt feelings or communication styles. The inability to give and receive authentic apologies is destroying relationships, creating resentment, and perpetuating cycles of unresolved conflict that poison emotional intimacy. Understanding why this happens and what to do about it might be the key to breaking through the most frustrating patterns in your relationships. Here's the paradox that confuses men. The same women who apologize for existing in public spaces become mysteriously unable to apologize when they've actually done something wrong. Watch any woman navigate a crowded coffee shop, and you'll hear Zori at least 5 times. Sorry for being in line. Sorry for asking a question. Sorry for existing in someone else's peripheral vision. Women are socialized from childhood to apologize preemptively, constantly, reflexively. They say sorry so often that it becomes meaningless white noise. But then comes the moment when a genuine apology is warranted, when she's crossed a boundary, hurt someone she cares about, or behaved in a way that caused real harm. And suddenly, those 2 simple words become impossible to utter. The woman who apologizes for breathing too loudly in public cannot bring herself to say, "I'm sorry," when she's genuinely in the wrong. This creates a maddening cognitive dissonance for men. They witness the constant stream of unnecessary apologies and think, she obviously knows how to apologize. She does it all day long. So why won't she apologize to me when it actually matters? The answer lies in understanding the different functions these apologies serve. The public apologies, the sorry for taking up space, aren't really apologies at all. They're social lubricant designed to prevent conflict rather than resolve it. They're preemptive strikes against potential confrontation, ways of signaling non-threatening intent in a world that often punishes women for being assertive. These reflexive apologies cost nothing because they acknowledge no real wrongdoing. A woman saying sorry for walking in front of someone isn't admitting fault. She's performing a social ritual that maintains harmony without admitting actual responsibility. But genuine apologies in intimate relationships require something entirely different. The admission of actual fault, the acknowledgement of harm caused, and the implicit promise to change behavior. This type of apology has real psychological and social costs that the reflexive Zord doesn't carry. From an evolutionary perspective, admitting fault to a mate historically carried serious risks. For women, who are often dependent on male protection and resources, acknowledging wrongdoing could potentially trigger abandonment or withdrawal of support. The reflexive Zori evolved as a way to prevent conflicts from starting. While the genuine apology creates vulnerability that evolution hasn't necessarily prepared women to embrace. This explains why women can simultaneously be chronic over-apologizers and apology avoiders. They're using the words Ori for completely different purposes, one to prevent conflict, one to resolve it, and these purposes require entirely different psychological mechanisms. Men, who typically apologize less frequently, but more meaningfully interpret the constant public apologies as evidence that women understand the value and mechanics of apologies. They don't realize that these public performances actually make it harder for women to give genuine apologies when they matter because the word has been stripped of its meaning through overuse. The woman who says Aori 20 times a day for imaginary infractions has trained herself to divorce the word from any genuine acknowledgement of wrongdoing. When the time comes for real accountability, she lacks the psychological framework to separate meaningful apologies from social performance. The apology deficit reveals a fundamental confusion between social performance and genuine accountability. Women over-apologize for things that don't matter precisely because they under-apologize for things that do. Understanding this paradox is the first step toward bridging the communication gap between the sexes. When conflict arises in relationships, men and women aren't just disagreeing about solutions. They're disagreeing about what the actual problem is. From a man's perspective, relationship problems follow a logical sequence. Behavior causes consequences. She did something wrong which caused him to feel upset. And the solution is acknowledgement of the wrongdoing, plus a commitment to change the behavior. It's a straightforward cause and effect framework that mirrors how men approach problems in most areas of life. But women often operate from a completely different problem definition framework. From her perspective, the issue isn't the behavior that caused the upset, it's the upset itself. The man's anger or hurt feelings become the problem to be solved, not a consequence of some prior action. This might seem illogical to men, but it actually has some validity when you think about it from a systems perspective. In legal terms, a breach of contract by itself isn't actionable unless you can prove damages. No harm, no foul. From this viewpoint, the behavior is only a problem because it created emotional harm. So, if you can eliminate the emotional harm, you've solved the problem. This fundamental difference in problem perception leads to completely different solution strategies. Men seek acknowledgement and behavioral change because they see the behavior as the root cause. Women seek emotional repair because they see the emotional state as the actual problem. This explains why women instinctively reach for strategies that men find baffling. Making his favorite meal, sending funny memes, offering physical affection, or simply waiting for time to heal the emotional wound. From her perspective, these aren't avoidance tactics. They're direct solutions to the real problem, which is his emotional state. The strategy even extends to sexual approaches. Many women intuitively understand that physical intimacy can reset emotional dynamics, reduce stress hormones, and create neurochemical bonding that makes conflicts feel less significant. From a purely practical standpoint, this can be remarkably effective. Many men do feel better after physical connection, even when the underlying issue remains unresolved. But here's where the strategy backfires. Men interpret these emotional repair attempts as manipulation or avoidance, because they don't address what men see as the core issue, the need for acknowledgement and accountability. What feels like problem solving to her feels like deflection to him. This creates a vicious cycle. She tries to solve what she sees as the problem, his emotional state, using strategies that make sense from her framework. He becomes more frustrated because she's not addressing what he sees as the problem, her behavior and lack of accountability. Her strategies fail to satisfy him, so she tries harder using the same approach, which frustrates him more. Neither party is wrong about their problem definition. They're operating from different but internally consistent frameworks. Understanding this difference is crucial because it explains why well-intentioned efforts to resolve conflicts often make them worse. The woman making his favorite meal isn't being manipulative. She's genuinely trying to solve what she perceives as the problem. The man demanding an apology isn't being controlling. He's seeking a solution that addresses what he perceives as the root cause. The problem perception gap reveals why conflicts escalate, even when both parties have good intentions. Men want accountability for behavior. Women want repair of emotional damage. And both strategies can be valid, but they're solving different problems entirely. Before we continue, if you're finding this exploration valuable, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It takes less than a second, costs you nothing, and it's a great way to help spread this message to others who might benefit from understanding these psychological patterns. Women's reluctance to apologize isn't a character flaw. It's an evolved survival strategy that served a crucial function throughout human history. To understand why women default to emotional repair over direct accountability, we need to consider the evolutionary context in which these strategies developed. For the vast majority of human history, women's survival and that of their children depended heavily on maintaining male support and protection. In ancestral environments, direct confrontation or admission of fault to a male partner carried genuine risks. A woman who acknowledged serious wrongdoing risked triggering male anger, potential violence, or abandonment, any of which could be catastrophic for her survival and that of her offspring. The stakes were literally life and death. Under these conditions, evolution favored women who could diffuse male anger and restore harmony without directly challenging male authority or admitting fault that might be used against them later. The strategies we see today, nurturing behaviors, physical affection, indirect emotional repair, aren't modern inventions. They're time-tested approaches that kept our female ancestors alive. Consider the biological mechanisms at play. When a woman offers physical affection or nurturing behaviors, she triggers the release of oxytocin and other bonding hormones in her partner. These neurochemicals naturally reduce aggression, increase attachment, and create feelings of well-being that make conflicts feel less important. From a purely biological standpoint, this is incredibly sophisticated conflict resolution. Rather than engaging in potentially dangerous verbal confrontations, women learn to manipulate the neurochemical environment to achieve the same goal, ending the conflict and restoring harmony. This also explains why women often use sex as a conflict resolution tool. Sexual activity floods the brain with bonding chemicals, reduces cortisol levels, and creates powerful feelings of connection that can override anger and resentment. It's not manipulation. It's biology working exactly as evolution designed it. The strategy worked so well that it became deeply embedded in female psychology. Even in modern contexts where the physical risks are minimal, women still instinctively reach for these evolutionary solutions because they're wired into the female nervous system. But here's the problem. Modern men often interpret these biologically driven strategies as dishonest or manipulative because they don't address what contemporary masculine psychology values most: direct communication, accountability, and behavioral change. Men have their own evolutionary programming that values direct confrontation, clear hierarchies, and explicit acknowledgement of fault. In male-dominated social structures throughout history, admitting wrongdoing and accepting consequences was how conflicts were resolved, and social order was maintained. These two evolutionary strategies, female emotional repair and male direct accountability, serve different but complementary functions in ancestral environments. Women kept groups cohesive through emotional management, while men maintained order through clear rules and consequences. The conflict arises when these ancient strategies collide in modern, intimate relationships. She's trying to restore harmony using methods that worked for thousands of years, while he's seeking accountability using methods that also worked for thousands of years, but they're optimized for different social contexts. Women's conflict strategies aren't modern dysfunctions. They're ancient survival mechanisms that kept our species alive. Understanding this evolutionary context helps us see these behaviors not as manipulation, but as deeply ingrained responses to perceived threats to relationship stability. For women, giving genuine apologies in intimate relationships creates a vulnerability that feels psychologically and evolutionarily dangerous. Here's what men often don't understand about female psychology. Admitting fault to someone you depend on emotionally feels like handing them a weapon they can use against you indefinitely. This isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition based on thousands of years of evolutionary programming and often personal experience. In intimate relationships, women frequently give more of themselves emotionally than men do. They're more likely to sacrifice career opportunities for relationships, more likely to relocate for a partner's job, more likely to take on emotional labor that keeps the relationship functioning. This greater investment creates greater vulnerability. When you've invested more in a relationship, acknowledging fault feels riskier because it potentially gives the other person ammunition to justify treating you poorly or leaving. A woman who apologizes for significant wrongdoing is essentially saying, "I'm the one who damaged this relationship," which can be used against her if the relationship deteriorates. This vulnerability is compounded by social dynamics that many men don't fully appreciate. Women are often socialized to be relationship managers responsible for emotional harmony, communication, and conflict resolution. When something goes wrong in the relationship, women frequently blame themselves even when the fault is shared or belongs primarily to their partner. Given this tendency towards self-blame, admitting fault in specific situations can feel like accepting responsibility for the entire relationship's problems. A woman who apologizes for one argument might fear that she's implicitly accepting the role of the problem person in the relationship. There's also the issue of emotional labor inequality. Many women feel like they already do most of the work to maintain relationship harmony, managing calendars, remembering important dates, initiating difficult conversations, smoothing over conflicts with extended family. From this perspective, being asked to also formally apologize when things go wrong can feel like adding insult to injury. The vulnerability paradox is intensified by the fact that women often receive less emotional support than they provide. Studies consistently show that women offer more emotional support to their partners than they receive in return. When you're already giving more emotional energy than you're getting, admitting fault and taking responsibility for problems can feel like an unfair additional burden. This creates a psychological protection mechanism. If I don't admit fault, I can't be held entirely responsible for fixing the problem. It's not conscious manipulation. It's an unconscious strategy to maintain some emotional equilibrium in relationships where women often feel like they're doing more of the emotional work. The irony is that this protection mechanism often backfires. By avoiding accountability, women miss opportunities to demonstrate the kind of integrity and self-awareness that actually strengthens relationships and increases respect from partners. But understanding the vulnerability paradox helps explain why women might choose emotional repair strategies over direct apologies. From their perspective, making his favorite meal or offering physical affection accomplishes the goal of restoring harmony without requiring them to accept additional responsibility or vulnerability in an already unbalanced dynamic. The vulnerability paradox reveals that women's reluctance to apologize often stems from feeling like they already carry too much responsibility for relationship maintenance. Understanding this helps men see apology avoidance not as stubbornness, but as emotional self-protection in relationships where women often give more than they receive. What most women don't realize is that refusing to apologize when appropriate doesn't protect their position in the relationship. It undermines the very respect and admiration they're hoping to maintain. Here's a counterintuitive truth. Admitting wrongdoing when you're actually wrong is one of the fastest ways to gain respect rather than lose it. This operates on multiple psychological levels that many women don't fully understand. First, there's the basic principle of integrity. When someone owns their mistakes honestly and directly, it demonstrates several highly attractive qualities: self-awareness, courage, and genuine care for the other person's feelings. These are exactly the traits that build long-term respect and admiration in relationships. Second, apologizing appropriately actually demonstrates strength rather than weakness. It takes significant personal strength to overcome pride, acknowledge fault, and make yourself vulnerable to someone you've hurt. Most people recognize this courage, even if they don't consciously think about it. Third, genuine apologies repair trust in a way that alternative strategies simply cannot. When someone admits wrongdoing and commits to behavioral change, it addresses the fundamental question that underlies all relationship conflict. Can I trust this person to treat me well? Emotional repair strategies might make someone feel better temporarily, but they don't answer this crucial trust question. The respect economy operates differently than many women expect. Rather than losing standing by admitting fault, women who apologize appropriately often find that their partner's respect for them increases dramatically. Men in particular are conditioned to value direct communication and accountability. So, a woman who can own her mistakes often stands out as exceptional. This is partly because many men have experienced the frustrating pattern of women who never quite take responsibility for their actions. A woman who breaks this pattern by offering genuine accountability instantly differentiates herself in a powerful way. It's so rare that it feels remarkable, but the respect economy also works in reverse. Consistently avoiding accountability when appropriate gradually erodes respect and trust. Each time a woman chooses emotional repair over genuine apology when she's actually wrong, she makes small withdrawals from her partner's respect account. Over time, this creates a dynamic where the man begins to see her as someone who can't be trusted to be honest about her own behavior. This perception is often more damaging to the relationship than whatever she was originally trying to avoid by not apologizing. The tragedy is that women often avoid apologies to protect their position in the relationship, but this strategy typically achieves the opposite result. Men interpret apology avoidance as a lack of integrity, which undermines attraction and respect more than acknowledging mistakes ever would. There's also a practical benefit to apologies that many women overlook. They're efficient. A genuine apology can resolve conflicts in minutes that might otherwise fester for days or weeks. Instead of elaborate emotional repair strategies that may or may not work, a direct acknowledgement of wrongdoing often allows both parties to move forward immediately. The key is understanding when apologies are appropriate. Not every conflict requires an apology. Sometimes disagreements are about different values or preferences rather than actual wrongdoing. But when a woman has genuinely behaved badly, crossed a boundary, or hurt someone unnecessarily, an apology is usually the fastest and most effective path to resolution. The respect economy reveals that apologies are actually investments in relationship equity rather than withdrawals. Women who understand this gain a powerful tool for building trust and admiration that alternative strategies simply cannot match. Understanding why women don't apologize reveals the path forward, integrating the best of both masculine and feminine approaches to conflict resolution. The solution isn't for women to abandon their natural conflict resolution strategies, or for men to stop valuing accountability. Instead, both sexes need to understand and appreciate the complementary strengths that each approach brings to relationship health. Women's instinct for emotional repair serves crucial functions in relationships. The ability to restore harmony, reduce stress, and rebuild connection through nurturing behaviors is genuinely valuable. Many conflicts do benefit from these approaches, especially when the issue is more about emotional disconnection than specific wrongdoing. But emotional repair works best when it's combined with appropriate accountability, not used as a substitute for it. A woman who makes her partner's favorite meal and also acknowledges her role in their conflict demonstrates both emotional intelligence and personal integrity. For women, the integration solution involves developing comfort with appropriate vulnerability. This means learning to distinguish between situations where apologies are warranted and situations where they're not, and finding the courage to offer genuine accountability when it's appropriate. This requires overcoming the evolutionary programming that makes admitting fault feel dangerous. In modern relationships, acknowledging wrongdoing to a loving partner typically strengthens rather than threatens the relationship. Understanding this intellectually can help override ancient emotional responses. Women also benefit from understanding that men often interpret emotional repair strategies as avoidance, because they're not addressing the accountability component that masculine psychology values. Adding genuine acknowledgement to nurturing behaviors makes those behaviors feel sincere rather than manipulative. For men, the integration solution involves appreciating the genuine value of emotional repair while still maintaining standards for accountability. This means recognizing when a partner's nurturing behaviors represent genuine care and effort, even if they don't include explicit apologies. Men can also help by creating emotional safety for apologies. If a woman's previous experiences with admitting fault have been met with excessive punishment, criticism, or ongoing resentment, she'll naturally become reluctant to repeat the experience. Men who respond to apologies with grace and forgiveness encourage more honesty in the future. The most effective approach often involves both parties taking responsibility for their contributions to conflicts. Most relationship problems aren't entirely one-sided, so expecting only one person to apologize misses opportunities for mutual growth and understanding. Communication about these patterns is also crucial. Couples who can discuss their different approaches to conflict resolution often find ways to honor both partners' needs. A woman might say, "I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. I also want to do something nice for you, because that's how I show love." This acknowledges both the need for accountability and the desire to rebuild connection. The integration solution also involves timing. Sometimes immediate apologies are appropriate, but sometimes emotional repair needs to happen first, to create the safety necessary for genuine accountability. Understanding when to use which approach requires emotional intelligence from both partners. Ultimately, the goal is creating relationships where both partners feel heard, respected, and valued for their natural approaches to conflict resolution, while still maintaining standards for honesty and accountability that allow trust to flourish. The integration solution reveals that the best relationships combine feminine emotional intelligence with masculine accountability standards. When both approaches are valued and appropriately applied, conflicts become opportunities for deeper connection rather than sources of ongoing resentment. Understanding why women don't apologize reveals fundamental differences in how the sexes approach conflict, vulnerability, and relationship repair. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about recognizing that men and women often operate from completely different psychological frameworks that both have evolutionary validity. The path forward isn't for women to abandon their natural conflict resolution strategies or for men to stop valuing accountability. Instead, both sexes benefit from understanding and integrating the best of both approaches. For women, this means developing comfort with appropriate vulnerability and recognizing that genuine apologies often build rather than diminish respect. For men, this means appreciating the genuine value of emotional repair strategies while maintaining standards for accountability when appropriate. The most successful relationships are those where both partners understand these different approaches and create space for both emotional healing and honest accountability. When conflicts become opportunities for deeper understanding rather than battles over who's right, relationships can grow stronger through challenges rather than being weakened by them. What do you think? Does this match your experience with gender differences in conflict resolution? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to subscribe if you found this exploration valuable. And if you struggle with having one-night stands or connecting with women on first dates, check out our ebook, 9 Pre-Date Hacks. This guide has quick hacks you can use before you enter the date. Link is in the description.